So there's a lot of things to understand about nitric oxide and how it actually functions in the body and what it does to our cardiovascular system, which is, by the way, the #1 killer of all Americans. In fact, if you are standing next to a friend right now or next to a spouse, 1 out of 2 will die from a cardiovascular issue. Heart attack, something of that magnitude, cardiovascular disease, it is the #1 killer. And why that is, that's something for a different video. The most important thing that you've got to understand, which is what I understand here, is what do we need to understand about nitric oxide? What is it? And how can we help to turn the clock back so that we can make better decisions than obviously we failed to do years and decades ago? Because that's really what you're dealing with in a cardiovascular scenario, is an accumulation of poor choices, poor lifestyle habits, not getting enough sleep, not getting enough exercise, eating poorly. That means too many carbohydrates, too much ultra-processed food, too much sugar, too many seed oils. Those four packed together, you can add in flour and starches and rices and all those other types of things that just literally take your, this is an artery right here. This is the endothelial wall. And what happens over time is the internal wall shrinks. It's called vasoconstriction is the medical term. And what happens is the pump, that's the engine of your body, has to continually to push what? Blood. And what is in blood? Not only nutrients, but most importantly, oxygen. That oxygen has got to get to your muscles, to your organs, and to your bones. And if it doesn't get there on a regular basis, guess what? You start to die. Pretty simple. So when we have this pump, and over time, our poor choices that has been that ultra-processed food, too much sugar, too much flour, too many carbohydrates, starches, all that kind of junk. What it's basically done is it's caused this endothelial walls to actually shrink. So your heart has to pump harder. If the heart is having to push the blood harder, what do you think happens as far as the pressure? It's common sense. The pressure goes up because you're having to push blood and oxygen through a smaller opening. That's the problem with vasoconstriction. So when you are able to add a natural supplement like nitric oxide flow from Nature's Pure Blend, what you're adding is a dual amino acid food-based supplement. Food-based is important because if it's food, it doesn't have side effects like synthetic drugs have, where your body doesn't like them, and the side effect is basically an allergic reaction or an inflammation that comes from something foreign that the body doesn't recognize as a food substance. When you're getting L-citrulline and L-arginine, they are food-based. L-citrulline comes from the rind of a watermelon, and L-arginine comes from beef and fish. So the combination of them together, each one of them by themselves, work great to help with this thing called vasodilation, okay? Vasodilation, as you see, it's the same rough exterior size of artery. But what's changed is the internal opening has now dilated or expanded. And when it dilates, it expands, what does that do for the difficulty level of the pump that's having to push the blood with the oxygen in it to your body, to your organs, to your muscles? All of a sudden, when that relaxes and this internal endothelial wall opens up, then you don't have to have as much pressure from the pump pushing as hard. So you got to think about this. Over time, if you're constantly overstressing your heart, then you're basically making it overwork. It's like any engine out there. If you run a car engine on full pedal all the way down, pressed into the floorboard all the time, eventually what? You're going to blow a gasket. Well, that's called a heart attack, where you end up just never allowing the pressure to be able to relax and pump at a a more balanced rate. That's really what we're after, is a more balanced rate where it's not constantly having to pump like it's in a race because the openings have constricted. You want it to relax. And when it relaxes, then that gives you the opportunity, basically like taking a big, deep, relaxing breath. So this is the difference between when you were a kid. Remember when we were in the backyard, we'd have a water hose out there doing a slip and slide or something like that, and somebody would step on the hose and you would see the hose jump. Why? Because pressure backed up in there because somebody's foot was stepping on the opening, so that all that water pressure had to go through a constricted opening. When they took the foot off, then everything went back to normal and we had plenty of pressure, no problem. So that's the same thing that happens with vasodilation, is you're dilating and opening up the internal wall, the endothelial wall of the blood vessels in the cardiovascular system. So the question is can we help to support a healthy cardiovascular system? And is it even possible to turn the clock back? Well, the answer is if you can actually go from this to this in a matter of hours, days, and even if you have stubborn blood pressure, let's say a matter of weeks, if you can help to return it back to its healthy normal levels where you're trying to get to that 120/80, then you can actually not only have the energy level that you used to have years or decades back, but you're also going to have more oxygen because blood is going to be circulating through your cardiovascular system better. And that additional oxygen and blood going to your brain is going to do what? It's going to increase your mental clarity. Have you ever started feeling like you knew the word or you knew the phrase and it's just right on the tip of your tongue and you can't find it? And you're like, that used to not happen to me just a few years ago when I didn't have as much gray hair. Well, maybe the gray hair is a kind of a signaling that this is what's happened because we haven't had the right diet, and we are all, get this, all of us are naturally deficient in nitric oxide gas, what's inside of our bloodstream. Up until we're 30 years old, we have 100% all that we need. Our body naturally produces it. And then something starts after age 30, we start this natural deficiency. And about 1% per 1 year of age, we start to see it clock down. So what happened to me? 2 years ago, I go to see my GP to have my 55th annual physical. And he tells me, Steve, you've got stage 1 hypertension. I'm like, how could that happen? I've been doing all the right stuff, eating all the right things, not drinking that much liquor, no smoking, no sugar, no flour, no rice, no starches, all that kind of good stuff. Really following more of a paleo type diet, low carb, high protein, high fat. And yet here I am still being told that my numbers are 137 over like 87, something like that, 135 over 87, but it certainly wasn't the 120 over 80. So obviously concerned about this, I told some of my best friends, and within a few days, one of my best friends, I guess I could call him my very best friend, sends me a bottle of nitric oxide flow from Nature's Pure Blend. And I jump into the science. I'm a science guy. And I go in there and do all the medical research that I challenge you to do as well and find out that nitric oxide that's in our bodies, that's, like I said, 100% there until we're 30, all of a sudden it starts this natural deficiency. And at 1% a year, all of a sudden I'm at 55. I have a 25. Think about the number. 55 minus 30 is 25 times 1% minimum. So that's a 25% daily deficiency. I was already starting to suffer, and that's just before I have anything to do with diet or exercise or family history. So when we understood what Dr. Ignario won the Nobel Prize for, he and his team in 1998, they won the #1 scientific award in the world for understanding how nitric oxide functions in the body. And when you get nitric oxide from these dual amino acid combination, this formula that Nature's Pure Blend has come up with, what you're getting is a combination of L-arginine and L-citrulline together. And if you're taking 2 capsules, that's the equivalent of 3 grams of nitric oxide producing amino acids. Now, that is enough for most individuals to start feeling the effects within hours, because your body is looking for the nitric oxide. It's just deficient. And so it has moved to this constricted stage. And all of a sudden, when you put the nitrates that go into your kidneys because of these amino acids, it can start relaxing the endothelial walls, helping the smooth muscles to open up and to dilate instead of constrict. And what can that do for you? That means that your heart is not having to pump as hard. It's not as stressed. It's not as overworked. So what are the other positive benefits that you get from taking these dual amino acids? Well, not only are they going to help you cut down your workout recovery time. So if you're a person that goes to the gym or you go out and do a walk, let's say at the end of every evening after dinner, that's a really great way to cut down on that insulin resistance from too much glucose being in your body from your dinner, all the carbs that we eat as Americans. You go take that 20-30 minute walk, and the next day you start feeling a little tired. You're not recovering as fast. Well, when you get nitric oxide in your bloodstream, you're going to feel that recovery period to drop. So the next day you're going to feel ready to go back out and to do that 30-minute and maybe increase the pace a little bit. So it helps you with your recovery time. Number two, because your blood carries oxygen, and oxygen to your brain is really what's starting to cause some of those tip of your tongue that I know the answer to this, but I can't give you the phrase or I can't give you the word. And all of a sudden, when you have more oxygen into your brain, all of a sudden you go back to that mental acuity that you had years or decades earlier, turning the clock back a little bit. The other thing that you'll notice too is having more oxygen to your brain means that your quality of sleep is going to increase. Not just the quantity that's going to increase, because we should all be targeting about 7 hours of sleep a night minimum. And a lot of people either have insomnia trying to go to sleep, or when they wake up, they can't go back after 4 hours. That was me. So all of a sudden, having nitric oxide in my body means that my sleep pattern goes from 4 or 5 hours and jumps up to 7 and 8 and even 9 hours of sleep that I have now been able to achieve on nitric oxide flow. So if you get more sleep, what do you think is going to happen to your brain, to your acuity, to your mental functioning, to your alertness? Absolutely. All those things are going to go up. So it's a combination of benefits. And even though this is a product that works equally well on the cardiovascular system for both men and women, men get one extra benefit simply because they have an extra appendage that produces a thing called an erection. And all guys like to talk about this when we're younger, but then as we get older, it becomes that thing that we're literally afraid of. It's a fear that all men have, is as they get older, are they going to become an individual that is dealing with erectile dysfunction? Well, the erectile dysfunction is a reaction from not having enough good circulation and getting that oxygen to your penis. Plain and simple, guys. So if you want something to increase the circulation throughout your entire body, giving you that better mental clarity, giving you that better recovery in the gym where you can go back and do the same thing and get a good workout again the next day, where you feel that you can have the endurance that you had when you were 10, 15, 20 years earlier, so you can work longer, work more focused. And guys, you're going to have the better quality of erection that not only is going to make you more confident, but they're going to make your partner have a smile on their face as well. So nitric oxide flow changed everything for me. It'll change it for you. It changes it within hours. Some people, because they have more stubborn blood pressure, it might take them a day or two. It took me 3 to actually get it more normalized. And now here I am over a year and a half later, 19 months later, still taking it as part of my everyday regimen, because it is a natural deficiency that we all have, like I said, past 30. So for me to be able to keep myself in that level of shape at 57 now, and my blood pressure to stay in that normal, healthy Goldilocks range, then I make sure that I'm taking 2 of these a day. It helps to keep the doctor away. It's something that'll make a difference in your life as well. Nitric Oxide Flow by Nature's Pure Blend.